The new leaders of the pack.
We sure as heck showed them last night what a comeback looks like.
John McCain hits Michigan and South Carolina. Hillary Clinton tries to explain her surprising victory in New Hampshire.
I came in there with a very, big problem, as we know. And I just determined that I was going to dig down deep and reach out and listen and talk.
I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, a bleak forecast for the U.S. economy. Why the influential firm of Goldman Sachs is predicting this election year will be a recession year. And she's the latest star on the internet.
It may have side effects, but so does pregnancy.
And she's teaching sex education to your kids.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. It's turning out to be one unpredictable presidential election year. Tonight, 1 week into the primary and caucus season, the race is still wide open. We've had 5 contests so far and 5 different winners, and this campaign is just beginning. Now the candidates have Michigan, Nevada, and South Carolina in their sights. John McCain and Hillary Clinton are counting on some momentum after their come-from-behind wins in New Hampshire. I spoke with Senator Clinton today. We'll have that interview for you in a moment. But first, with more on the Democratic face-off turned on its head, here's Dean Reynolds. Dean?
Good evening, Katie. Well, 24 hours ago, the eventual winner of the New Hampshire primary didn't think she'd win, and neither did the loser. Given what all the experts were saying, it was an improbable scene. On the stage last night in Manchester, Hillary Clinton reclaimed the spot her campaign has always felt was rightfully hers.
Over the last week, I listened to you, and in the process, I found my own voice.
Just days, really hours ago, her effort resembled a grim still life. Momentum sapped, inevitability shriveled, reduced almost to tears.
This is very personal for me. It's not just political, it's not just public.
And that may have turned the tide.
When she got emotional, she touched some people, certainly women voters.
Thank you, guys. I love you back.
It would be accurate to say that Barack Obama did not see this coming. With his adoring crowds and big lead in the polls, second place was not part of the program.
I want to congratulate Senator Clinton on a hard-fought victory here in New Hampshire.
He jumped back on the trail in New Jersey today looking to restore the magic, but chastened by the prospect of a long and arduous campaign. He gave his supporters a pep talk.
My back is a little sore, but my spirit is strong.
Exit polls showed that just as he had done in Iowa, Obama drew well among independents in New Hampshire. But in New Hampshire, Senator Clinton did too. In Iowa, Obama and Clinton split registered Democrats, but he lost them to her in New Hampshire. Most significant, Obama was preferred by the women who caucused in Iowa, but not the women who voted in New Hampshire. And that should give both campaigns food for thought as they fight it out. And on that point, Barack Obama is here tonight in Manhattan raising money from Hillary Clinton's New York constituents. Katie?
Dean Reynolds. Dean, thank you. Now to my interview with Hillary Clinton. I spoke with her this morning at her home in suburban Chappaqua, New York. She could have been channeling Mark Twain, who once said, "Reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." Despite what the polls and pundits were predicting about New Hampshire, she insists she was optimistic.
On Tuesday morning, when I got up before the sun was up and was out helping to deliver coffee to everybody who was working for me, I felt really good by the time I came in around early afternoon. I really did, Katie. I thought, something's happening. Not that I, was going to stand up and announce it, but I could feel it.
But your own internal polls were telling you otherwise.
I know that New Hampshire is fiercely independent. I came in there with a very, big problem, as we know. And I just determined that I was going to dig down deep and reach out and listen and talk and do what I have always done, which is what makes me get up in the morning, and that is to figure out how I could tell people what I want to do to serve them.
I see what's happening, and we have to reverse it.
Some observers believe that moment when you got emotional on Monday, when your voice cracked and your eyes welled up, that humanized you and made you much more attractive to women voters?
That moment, which obviously I've heard a lot about since, gave people maybe some insight into the fact that I don't see politics as a game. I don't see it as some kind of a traveling entertainment show where you get up and you perform and then you go on to the next venue. For me, it is a way of figuring out what we stand for, what our values are, and getting in a position to actually help people.
Will you be willing now to reveal more of yourself and be less reserved?
Well, one of my young friends said, "Well, that was like Hillary unplugged." And I thought, oh, okay, I can't sing and I can't play an instrument, but I will try to let people know, enough about me to know that I don't need to go back and live in the White House. That's not why I'm doing this. I certainly don't need any more name recognition, and I just want to try to convey that we're going to have to make some big decisions in this country. This is the toughest job in the world. I was laughing because, in that debate, obviously Senator Edwards and Senator Obama were kind of in the buddy system on the stage.
Every time he speaks out for change, every time I fight for change, the forces of status quo are going to attack.
And I was thinking, well, whoever's up against the Republican nominee in the election debates come the fall is not going to have a buddy to fall back on. You're out there all by yourself. When you're president, you're there all by yourself.
How can you be a real change agent when you were involved in a two-term administration in the 90s? You're yesterday's news, they think, in a way.
Well, I really didn't alter my message. I've been saying for many months, if you're ready for change, I'm ready to lead, because I think it does go hand in hand. If people really want change, and I agree we've got to after this administration and the problems we see in the world, then let's be sure we're electing someone who is not just talking about change, but has a history of acting to make change.
When we last spoke, you said with certitude, I will be the Democratic nominee.
Right.
Unwavering certitude. Are you sorry you said that with such confidence? Do you think that perhaps turned some people off?
Well, it might have. I was laughing about it afterwards because I can remember when I first met Jimmy Carter in 1975, and I introduced myself to him, and he said, "I'm Jimmy Carter, and I'm going to be president." I said, "Well, Governor Carter, maybe you shouldn't say that." And so I was laughing because I thought, well, if you really believe you'd be the best president, you can't get up every day and do this job that we're doing, running for president, which is really a full-time job, unless you really believe you are the person that can best serve our country at this time.
Can't you just say, I hope so, though? Isn't a little humility appealing?
I'm humble every day in the face of what I'm facing. I am absolutely aware of how difficult this is and how hard the job that I'm seeking will be. But I also know that you've got to really believe that you can do it. But ultimately, you have to be humble because it's up to the voters. Voters get to decide.
On the Republican side, John McCain is suddenly looking like a front-runner after his come-from-behind win in New Hampshire. Kelly Cobiella is covering the GOP candidates for us tonight.
With one big win under his belt, a confident John McCain brought his momentum and message to Michigan.
We won New Hampshire, we'll win Michigan, we'll win South Carolina, we will win the nomination, and I will be the next president of the United States with your help.
McCain needs Michigan, but not nearly as much as rival Mitt Romney, who led the field in pre-Christmas polls.
I can tell you I'm going to win Michigan, and so I'm not sure whether I must win it, but I will win it.
In a sign of just how vital a win here has become, Romney's campaign pulled all television ads from Florida and South Carolina today to focus solely on his former home state. His father was a popular governor here, but he'll need more than name recognition to take the party's most conservative voters from Mike Huckabee. The former Arkansas governor was in South Carolina today, shoring up that support among pro-life voters.
It was the day that one person's life is more valuable than another. We have already crossed the threshold toward disaster.
Huckabee is also shifting more resources this way. Still, the key issue here is the economy. Michigan's battered auto industry has led to the highest unemployment rate in the country, and it's economic salvation that matters to most.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are leaving. There's no jobs.
And the economy was also the top issue among Republican voters in the New Hampshire primary. And something else these two states have in common, Katie, a large block of independent voters.
All right, Kelly Kobiea. Thank you, Kelly. So where does the campaign go from here? Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. Bob, we need directions, and you've got a roadmap.
Well, Katie, you just heard how important Michigan is to Mitt Romney and John McCain. Here's a little rundown on what's crucial to the rest of them. If Republican Mike Huckabee can just hang in there 10 days until South Carolina, where he has a lot of religious support and could win, that would help him raise the money he's going to need to compete on Super Tuesday, when all the big state primaries will be held. If Fred Thompson doesn't do well in South Carolina, he's probably done. Republican Rudy Giuliani, who's been no factor so far, needs a big win in Florida to get the bump he needs going into Super Tuesday. Hillary Clinton could move into high gear if she could make it 2 wins in a row over Barack Obama when they meet in Nevada. She needs to do that because he's favored a week later in South Carolina. The big prize remains those Super Tuesday contests when 24 states will be holding primaries and caucuses, and about 40% of the delegates will be at stake. And that's what they're all aiming for. But the truth is, Katie, no one can predict who will be in the best shape by then. These races are wide open now for both parties.
That's for sure. Bob Schieffer. Bob, thank you. Now in other news, talk of a new troop surge tonight, this time in Afghanistan. David Martin reports from the Pentagon.
Just as American troops are beginning to withdraw from Iraq, the Joint Chiefs of Staff have drawn up a plan for sending more troops to the so-called forgotten war in Afghanistan. The plan, which has not yet been approved by Defense Secretary Gates, calls for sending 3,000 Marines to Afghanistan in time for an expected upsurge in fighting next spring. That would bring the overall number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan to 30,000. Some of the Marines would be sent directly into combat in Taliban strongholds in southern Afghanistan. The rest would help train the Afghan army and police. The plan was drawn up after NATO countries failed to respond to a request from the U.S. commander in Afghanistan for more troops to contain Taliban forces operating out of sanctuaries in Pakistan. The plan is expected to be presented to Secretary Gates later this week. If he approves and the President agrees, the U.S. will embark on a troop surge in Afghanistan just as the one in Iraq is ending. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Meanwhile, in Iraq, a new offensive targeting al-Qaeda is off to a bloody start for U.S. troops. 6 American soldiers were killed today when a house rigged with explosives blew up in Diyala province north of Baghdad, and 3 soldiers were killed yesterday during an attack in a neighboring province. There is much more CBS News ahead, including the dreaded R word, a prediction that the housing slump will lead the entire economy into a recession.